Imagine a heavy disc, cold metal, smooth and unyielding, spinning slowly on the dusty cinder of a stadium circle. The air is still, the sky a vast dome over an expectant crowd. You hear the low murmur of thousands, the faint scrape of shoes on concrete, and the soft rustle of athletes shifting weight. Then, in a heartbeat, a deep breath, a coiling body, sheer tension focused into a moment of movement. The discus flies, wide arc, cutting air, soaring farther than any woman has ever thrown before. It lands with a thunderous thud. The measuring tape crawls across the field. 76.80 meters, someone shouts. A hush, and then a roar, electrifying. In that instant on the 9th of July 1988, in New Brandenburg, a name was carved into history, Gabriele Reinsch. That throw, 76.80 meters, stands to this day as the world record in women's discus. It was a feat that transcended mere sport. It became legend. That 500-word beginning sets the stage. What follows is the story of a girl from a small town who dared to dream. We will explore the roots of her journey, her early years in the former East Germany, the struggles and doubts she faced, the dedication and sacrifice behind each throw. We will watch her pivot from high jump and shot put to mastering the discus, endure relentless training under harsh conditions, fight rises and falls, and ultimately seize a world-shattering moment. We'll live the swing of muscle, the scent of sweat, the thunder of applause, the solitude of wind-down evenings, the hopes and fears, the pressure of expectation, and the uncheckable will to be extraordinary. And we will end on not just a record, but a legacy, a challenge for every listener to find their own inner discus, their own moment to fling toward the horizon. She was born on the 23rd of September 1963 in Cottbus, a modest city in the German Democratic Republic, into a time and place where life often felt as gray as the concrete apartment blocks that framed the skyline. Yet even as a child, Gabriele Reinsch carried within her a spark of something more than ordinary. She was tall, strong, but also restless and curious. At 14 she stepped into athletics, not immediately with the discus, but experimenting first with high jump and shot put. The throws fascinated her, the promise of power, of geometry, of turning raw strength into arc and distance. At 18 to 19 she achieved second place in shot put at the 1981 Junior European Championships, 17.03 meters. Briefly, she held hope in that discipline, but fate, instinct, or something deeper nudged her toward the discus. By 1982 she made the switch and focused fully on discus, a decision that would define everything. The early days were hard. She belonged to SC Cottbus until 1985. Training under the gray skies of East Germany, in austere stadiums, with heavy implements, limited fanfare, and even fewer comforts. Her mornings began with the creak of metal and echoing thuds as discs hit the ground, followed by hours of drills, footwork, spin technique, grip strength, rigid discipline. She pushed her body, 1.84 meters tall, 88 kilograms, but power alone was not enough. Technique had to be refined. The balance of momentum and timing, the fluid arc of shoulder and hip, the release at just the right moment. Her coach guided her, at first at SC Cottbus, then from 1986 at ASK Vorwärts Potsdam under trainer Lothar Hillebrand. She changed clubs, her training regime intensified. Personal life beyond the circle was simple. Early mornings, evenings spent studying sports theory. After all, she was a graduated sports teacher, and weekends when she allowed herself fleeting comforts. A warm bath, bread and jam, letters from friends, silent nights staring at the stars wondering how far she could throw. There was no glamour, no spotlight, just toil. The mechanics of rotation, the whine of the discus against air, the burn in her legs, all became part of a ritual that shaped not only her body, but her spirit. Doubt crept in sometimes. What if she never breaks past 65, 66, 70 meters? What if she remained just another thrower lost in a sea of GDR athletes, many talented, many desperate, many overshadowed? In 1987, she seemed to find momentum. At the Summer Universiade in Zagreb she hurled 64.12 meters, enough for silver. Not yet spectacular, but a sign. She felt something unlock. Maybe it was confidence, or a new rhythm, or an inner voice whispering, "You can bend the world." Off that, she built steadily. But the leap, the quantum leap, still seemed distant. Her personal best hovered around 67.18 meters. In the ruthless hierarchy of discus throwers, that was respectable but not legendary. She watched peers, rivals, other names rising, breaking 70, but the 70-meter barrier loomed like a wall. Then came summer 1988. The days stretched warm. The meet between East Germany and Italy was scheduled in New Brandenburg. The stadium smelled of sweat and fresh-cut grass, the seats filled with familiar faces, coaches, fellow athletes, curious spectators. She could feel the energy in the air, subtracting sleep, adding tension. She stepped into the circle for her first throw. The discus felt heavy, heavier even than usual, as if charged with expectation. She exhaled, twisted her body, pivoted, swung, let go. The disc cracked through air. For a moment, time slowed. The crowd leaned forward. The arc soared. It seemed impossibly high. Then it landed far, far beyond anything seen before from a woman. As the announcer's voice carried across the stadium, 76.80 meters. A gasp, then cheers, then uproar. She stood there, chest heaving, heart pounding, legs trembling. Some people covered their mouths in disbelief. Others raised their arms violently, as if to catch the throw themselves. Her coach, Lothar, slapped his palm to his forehead, eyes wide. Fellow competitors stared. The Italian team looked stunned. The record stood, not just broken, shattered. She had thrown more than to point to 4 meters beyond the previous world record, set by Zdenka Silhava in 1984, and she threw that magic mark on her very first attempt. In that moment, everything changed. For her, the dream became real. For women's athletics, the ceiling was moved perhaps forever. That 76.80 meters remains the official world record, recognized by the governing body. Decades passed. The world changed. Athletes came and went. Some approached her distance. None surpassed it. Some came close, but no one broke it. The record endures. But Gabrielle's life after that throw was not just celebration. There were challenges. A few months later she competed in the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, a grand stage, bright lights, global attention. Yet there she managed 67.26 meters, finishing 7th. A far cry from 76.80. Imagine, the same body, same technique, a global audience, yet unable to replicate that flying moment. Maybe pressure, maybe fatigue, maybe nerves. The crowd in Seoul, thousands of faces, expecting greatness, watched her throws, 66.50, then 63.30, 65.88, 66.40, then a foul, silence, disappointment. Even for a world record holder, sport is ruthless. It does not guarantee victories, only opportunities. Still, she kept going. In 1989, at the Universiade in Duisburg, she threw 65.2 meters, again silver. In 1990 at the European Championships in Split she came fourth with 66.08 meters. She remained among the best, though never again approached her record-setting distance. After German reunification in 1990, the world she knew changed, clubs restructured, systems collapsed, old routines disrupted. She competed for a few more years 1991 to 1993 in German championships, but the intensity, the drive, the institutional pressure faded. She had given so much, perhaps it was time to let go. She walked away not in defeat, but with dignity, history, and that one throw that no one could erase. I want you to picture that throw again, the arc, the gasp, the weightless moment, and hold it in your mind. That is what greatness looks like, not smooth, not guaranteed, but explosive, audacious, unforgettable. Yet beyond the world record, beyond the medals and rankings, there is a deeper story. A story of grit, of working in obscurity under conditions few outsiders saw, of quiet mornings in East Germany, of drills repeated until hands bled, of doubts stared down in the lonely hours before dawn, of the humility to trust the process, and the courage to release everything in a split second when it mattered most, of a woman defying expectations, not by breaking a limit, but by redefining what the limit even was. I like to imagine, late at night, she sits somewhere, quiet house, maybe a mug of tea, and sometimes closes her eyes. She can see the circle, feel the discus in her hand, smell the grass and dust, hear the roar. She smiles, because she knows, she cast that medal into history. And though decades have passed, the line she drew in the air remains. Dear viewer, that's the power of dedication. That's the power of believing in yourself. That's the power of a moment seized. If Gabriele Reinsch's journey teaches us anything, it's this. You may not always win. You may not always repeat your greatest triumph. But if you hold on to faith, keep turning the circle, strength, technique, patience, one day you may fly farther than you ever imagined. Throw your metaphorical discus, break your boundaries. Surprise the world, surprise yourself. So when you go about your own challenges, in work, in dreams, in relationships, in life, remember her. The girl from Cottbus, who dared to spin, to throw, to risk everything for a single perfect moment. Maybe you're not training for a discus. Maybe your dream isn't in a stadium. But the principle remains the same. Focus, force, release, and then see how far you fly. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Behind the Medal. Let Gabriele Reinsch's record remind us. Greatness doesn't require a stage, only courage, only heart.